Okay, and we are live if I am not mistaken. All right, well, welcome to anyone who has joined the stream. It looks like we've only got about like two viewers right now, but anyways, I'm joined today with Steve. He goes by, he's a viewer of my channel, I guess, and a active member in the vegan community, I guess you could say, or at least on the YouTubes. I've seen him watch a few other vegans channels and all that stuff. And today we're going to be debating the topic of real estate and veganism, and is real estate anti-vegan, if you will. And so, Steve, if you have any type of opening statements, please go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, so my argument is that capitalism, by definition, is anti-vegan. And that is because you can't make profits without exploiting animals. And in terms of this debate, the proposition is the real estate business is not anti-vegan. So I'm taking the con side of that. And basically, within capitalism, any for-profit business is exploitative because profits cannot be created without exploitation. So, yeah, and I'm drawing a blank, of course, but basically, this came about because of your on flipping or on purchasing a house and then charging it or changing it into an investment property for rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, well, how is that vegan? If you're a vegan channel, how is exploiting someone for their need for shelter vegan? So that's basically where I'm coming from. And yeah, we
Okay.
can get I'm botching this entire opening statement, but we'll get into all the reasons
Right.
why.
That's okay. Yeah, but I get the gist of what you're saying. So anything that's made for a profit, if anybody makes any money at all, what you're saying is, doesn't matter what it's being sold, it is considered to be anti-vegan. Did I interpret that correctly?
No. Anything. Well, okay. You've got exploitation is on a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got slavery,
Mm-hmm.
which is like 100% exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes on down the line from there. So in terms of veganism, the ultimate exploitation would be killing an animal for your own profit, right? And on down the line, you'd have like backyard chickens, which if you know anybody who has backyard chickens, they take care of their chickens and they care for them, but then they take their eggs. So that's would you consider that exploitation?
If someone takes their eggs, like the chicken's eggs,
Yeah.
yeah, I would consider it a type of exploitation because the stress that it puts on the chickens, from the little bit that I've read on it, I don't know too much on it, but I know it puts like, if it did absolutely nothing to the chicken and you were taking care of the chicken, then I wouldn't see the issue with it. And you actually like love the chicken and it just happened to just give you eggs and all that stuff and nothing would happen to the chicken, then I wouldn't see the issue with it. But since it actually does hurt the animal, then I would say, yeah, it does. And in this case, from what I've read, it actually does hurt the animal because they're like naturally egg-laying animals, right? And it's like just part of their nature to do that. And so when you take their eggs, it'll cause them to produce more and more eggs, and it like stresses the chicken out and all that stuff. So I would say that is exploitative. But if it's just something, if it hurts the animal directly, then I would say it is. In regards to chickens, yeah. I don't know if you're in agreement with that.
Yeah, and I would go even further to say that even say you had a chicken that like, how chickens should be fed, rescue chickens should be fed their eggs back to them. They should
Mm-hmm.
be able to eat their eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you had a chicken that didn't want their eggs and just left them alone and never ate them, by you taking those eggs, that's called fruit of the poison tree, because that chicken was genetically bred for the purpose of laying eggs. And by you taking those eggs, even if it didn't want it, that's it's an ill-gotten gain. It's something that you never should have like benefited from in the first place. The benefit you're deriving from that unwanted egg is still unethical because it came from a place of original unethical treatment.
Okay. Even if it doesn't hurt, so what you're saying is if, in this case of the chicken, right, if it doesn't hurt the animal, let's just say, like, I'm not for it, by the way. I'm not saying like we should take away because I think it does hurt the chicken. Uh, because of where it's rooted from, because it was born into a life of exploitation, right? So if somebody just say never had any type of chickens that were exploited for eggs or exploited for meat or for their flesh or anything like that. They just somebody treated them like their pets. They just took care of them, right? And they did take their eggs, right? And it didn't do anything to chickens. Let's just say if it didn't, you would still say it is exploitative.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, how does that now? How would that correlate with real estate?
Okay, so capitalism is on the same spectrum of exploitation, to where if somebody's um, dying of thirst, and they crawl up to you and you've got a bottle of water, and it's your under capitalism, you've got the right to sell them that bottle of water. Now if you say, okay, well, yeah, sure, I'll sell you this bottle of water for $1,000, that's pure exploitation, right? Or you could say, sure, I'll sell you this bottle of water for a quarter. So you've got a spectrum. You've got on one end of the continuum, you've got pure exploitation and just like pure greed and everything that comes with it. And then on the other end, you're more fairly exploiting them for that water, instead of just being altruistic and saying, here, please, drink this water.
Fairly, I didn't know you could fairly exploit. It's a sort of two contradicting words, I would say. I don't know how you could fairly exploit someone personally. I don't know how that
Yeah,
would.
yeah, you can't. But I mean,
Okay.
in relative terms, it would be more fair. The charging a quarter would be more fair than charging $1,000.
Okay. Sure. Okay. So now, in regards to like, okay, and like in respect to like with what I do, right? Because it's by the way, this is only one of the things I do is real estate. So, uh, me everything that I do in real estate, right? I do passive, what's called passive income. I don't necessarily really like flip houses. Not to say that I won't do it in the future, but how am I exactly exploiting someone in that relative term that logic that type of framework that you have constituted here?
Okay, so everybody requires shelter to live,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so I feel that shelter should not be commodified. That in my perfect, pinko commie world, you wouldn't have people charging other people money to live, or charging anything to have shelter or food or health care. Now, we live in a capitalist world. We also live in a carnist world.
Mm-hmm.
So as vegans, we know that the more ethical way to live in a carnist world is to not participate in what carnists do. And what do carnists do? They use animals for their own benefit. So in a capitalist world, the more ethical thing to do is to not use people, is to not use the capitalist system of profiting off people for your own benefit. So it's a dog eat dog world, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're either eating the dog or you're the dog that gets eaten. And it's my argument that the ethical thing to do is to be the dog that gets eaten and not be the dog that is eating another dog. And the right thing to do is to rebel against a system that allows people to eat other dogs.
Gotcha. Okay, so within the system that we have in place right now, like you said, so you're against the system right now, you're against capitalism, is what you're saying. You're saying because it creates like this type of, like you say, dog eat dog world. Am I interpreting that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So how would you feel like what would be the correct way of correcting this then?
In your case,
Sure. Yeah, sure. We'll do it with the real estate. Yeah, sure.
I would. So in the vegan context, and we pre-debate agreed to use the definition of veganism that the Vegan Society uses, which is a way of living that seeks to exclude any animal exploitation as far as possible and practicable.
Mm-hmm.
So if I put that into the real estate context, it would be a way of making a living that seeks to exclude animal exploitation as far as possible and practicable. So if it is possible and practicable for you not to exploit people for their need for shelter and make a living doing something else that isn't that blatantly exploitative, then that is what you should do.
Right. Okay. For you, you're saying it's blatantly exploitative, but to you, capitalism itself is exploitative, right?
Right.
So what should I do?
Uh, are you able to work another job?
Yeah.
So you're in IT, right?
Oh, I was. Yeah, I got my degree in IT. I'm a trainer as well too. I do all sorts of shit, man.
Okay. So let's say if you wanted to make a living doing IT work and training, you're still exploiting people to some extent. You got to get, in order to make a profit in capitalism, you got to get over somehow to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're still on this continuum, right?
Mm-hmm.
In IT work, you're providing a benefit to people. So even if there's an unequal trade, if you're making a profit off something that you're doing, you're still providing like a valuable benefit. If I come to you and say I need you to train me and you charge me like $100 an hour, but I'm getting like the benefits, and I think, okay, well, this is worth it, even though it's a lot of money, then sure, then it's like it's more of an equal partnership.
Okay.
Whereas
Hmm.
renting a house to somebody, what are you providing? You're providing a house that they have to make payments on every month in order to stay there. But you didn't provide that, you didn't build the house, and they don't own the house. They're renting time. So the the exploitation is like way out of balance in those respects.
Okay. So, uh, but you would agree. Well, you said, for example, you gave the example of the IT thing, right? Like if I were to train someone in regards to IT, I'm providing some type of benefit, right? And even
Right.
though if I'm charging, say, like $100 an hour or something like that, the person will be benefiting greatly from that and all that stuff. So therefore, it's a little bit more equal. It's still exploitative based on what you're saying because we're still in a capitalist way, right? But it's not as exploitative. And I'm guessing you're saying it's not as exploitative because it's not an actual need, say like shelter, right? Is that what you're saying?
Right. And
Okay.
you're basically, you have to make money to live in this capitalist system.
Hmm.
That's basically, there's no way around that. So my argument is to do so in the most ethical way possible. And on this continuum, the the rental aspect, the landlord aspect is using the most exploitative method possible, whereas you could be doing something that is far, far less exploitative.
Okay. So I'm gonna drop a scenario for you. Okay. Where my real estate investments where they're at right now, they're in a military town. It's all Marines, right? I've pretty much spent my whole adult life in a military town in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and in that area, for example, the market sometimes it wavers like crazy. Like sometimes it'll be like as of recently, actually, it's been like super crazy. It's been like super super dry. We have a lot of Marines and a lot of civilians as well too, due to like Hurricane Florence that came by in 2017, and due to like the uh, the pandemic, people actually coming down from like northern states, people coming actually from California and all sorts of stuff. People are actually now like exiting these more expensive states to go to like the cheaper states, I guess you could say, or cheaper states that are more uh, financially feasible to live in, right? So in my case, for example, I heard the word like benefit a lot. Like it's for example, like if you do IT compared to real estate, it's not as exploitative because that person is benefiting. Well, like I said, I'll give you an example. I have some tenants that have been living in my house, by the way, in one of my houses for about almost 3 years now. The air conditioner just went out on it. That was a just under $6,000 repair, right? If I didn't pay for that, that would be put on to them, right? And understand just so that you know, I don't know if you know this, but when I have to make an expense like that, even though it is a business expense, that puts me into the hole for years. Like I'm not going to see that money back for years. I may not even ever see that money back in case something does happen because it is a risk when you go into any type of business venture, real estate, stocks, whatever it is. Would you say that's not a benefit to say the person who is living in that property?
Yeah, your individual um I don't know if air conditioning falls under the same thing as like a working stove and a working fridge. Like if those things have to be maintained,
Mm-hmm.
or if air conditioning is considered a luxury. um I mean, what you're describing is you're acting like a good landlord. Like my landlord, he's probably the best landlord I've ever had. He's a good guy, but he's still exploiting me. And he's actually, you know, in the 10 years that I've been living here, he's set foot into this place 3 times, and that was to fix pipes twice and to fix the washing machine once. And aside from that, he's been making profits off me for the last 10 years. So what you're describing is like, yeah, there's some risk, but the risk that you're taking, you're doing so because to come out you're doing so in order to make profits.
Mm-hmm.
You're not taking a risk to, you know, be to be altruistic to your tenants. You're taking a risk so that, well, you know, hopefully this new air conditioner is going to last another, you know, 20 years or so, and I won't have to sink another $6,000 into it.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you know, everything will run smooth and the profits will roll. So the problem is that it's a coercive business. It's coercive because not your personal trainer business is not coercive because, you know, people don't have to come up to you, and you're not forcing people to, you know, train, or you're not forcing people to, you know, train with you. But everybody needs a place to live, and if they don't rent from you, they're going to have to rent from somebody else. So,
Are they?
well, no, they have the choice of living in a tent,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, going out in the woods and fending for themselves, but, you know, that's not realistic.
Well, what else can they do though, Steve?
They can own a house.
Mm-hmm. So what's wrong? That's what I'm saying. So that's where I'm seeing the disconnect. Like, because I'm not. You say I'm not forcing anyone to like train anyone or like to take my IT course or something like that or whatever, right? Well, I'm not forcing anyone to rent anything either, right? And either way, every scenario that you just explained, I would still be profiting off these people, right? Now, somehow, what you're saying is because it's a necessity, it is making it more exploitative, even though I'm profiting either way, right? Whether it's training, whether it's uh, IT stuff, whatever, real estate. The way I see it is I'm still profiting. People are still profiting off of it, but you've got. It seems like what you're saying is that it's more exploitative because it's a necessity. But even on those grounds, I would say it's you don't have to rent either. Um, I know people who don't rent. Um, would you say renting or living in the woods, as you said, or living in a tent, are the only ways of living in this country?
Well, you can either own a home
Mm-hmm.
or rent
Mm-hmm.
or fend for yourself, live in your car. Um, yeah,
Okay, yeah, I would actually agree with all that, 100%, because I know people who've actually done that, who've lived in their cars and all that stuff, and lived in vans and uh, shit. I lived in the woods for a little bit, not because I was like homeless or nothing, but training when I was in the Marine Corps, we lived in the woods for a while. But again, when we're talking about like basic needs, technically what I am providing as a service is not I don't think it's an actual basic need. Would you say that what I am doing in regards to the real estate business, would you say it's a basic need?
Yeah, I would say housing is a basic need.
Okay. So if housing is a basic need, like you're talking like the houses that I provide, for example, well, right now I'm in a hotel. I'm not even in my home. I'm actually in a hotel with went traveling with my girlfriend. We're in Waynesville, North Carolina right now. But anyways, if the house that I provide, for example, like the house that you saw, right? You would say that house is a basic need for someone in America.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's where you and I differ because I would say that that house is, and not even I, but I think even science would disagree with that because uh, housing is not a basic need. Shelter is a basic need, but not a house with a two-car garage and four bedrooms and flooring and all that stuff. It's not a basic need. 100% is not a basic need. So you could choose to have your basic needs, or you can choose to live in what I would call a privileged, I would say privileged society, you know, that being in America, you know, in a developed society. Because as we know, there are places all around the world where there people don't have the benefits of living in these types of developed scenarios. So what I'm providing is not something that is a necessity for someone. It is not. It is if you want to live there, you can live there.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever thought of that way. Like you don't need air conditioning, you don't need drywall, you don't need stoves, you don't actually need a metal roof over your head, electricity, all that stuff. I wouldn't say that all those things are necessities, actual basic necessities. You would say they are?
Well, I would say you're right in that, you know, the level of shelter is definitely also on a continuum of
Mm-hmm.
you know, necessity. Um, so yeah, I mean, theoretically, you only need a 5 by 5 shack with, you know, maybe running water, or maybe, you know, an outhouse, or maybe a well outside or something like that.
And that's what I'm saying. What I provide is I don't think there's anything special to what I'm doing. I don't think I deserve like any type of praise or anything like that. I'm not saying like what I'm doing is like some excellent thing or whatever. Even though, I'm just gonna let you know, for example, that house that you saw that was renovated, that house was like all kinds of jacked up, and the neighbors actually thanked me because it was actually bringing their property values down. And so, you know, the grass was like super high. The people that were living there were like, they didn't take care of the place. The place was a shithole. They jacked the whole place up. And then I've actually had actually the past two tenants that have lived there, each one is actually like thanked me because they couldn't find a place like that for the price that I was giving it for. And because it was exactly what they needed. And so they can easily afford it and are willingly able to pay it. So I don't know how I would be exploiting them if they willingly want to live in a place like this. Because for example, these are Marines. The Marine that's living in there doesn't want to buy a property. He doesn't want to buy a property because he knows that after he gets out of the Marine Corps, he's going to go somewhere else, and he doesn't want to have to deal with the responsibilities of having to get his real estate sold or rented or deal with the ups and downs of the markets. He just wants to rent, have a place to live that's decent in a nice neighborhood that's clean, all that stuff at an affordable price. And so I don't see how I would be exploiting someone like that, like my that current tenant or even any of my other tenants.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely you know, a side of this that says, you know, there's a class of people that, like, you know, they don't want to own a home. It's more convenient for them to rent,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Um, but for the majority of people, I would say that that's not the case. That they're basically forced into renting.
Okay.
Um,
Do you feel like you're forced into renting?
yeah, like
Okay.
there's no way I can afford to buy a house.
Yeah, and I feel for you, man. Actually, I do feel for you for in regards to that because, and I think that's a problem just with the economic state of this country. And I would agree. I will agree with you on that. I don't know if, what's your stance on that, but that the prices in the West Coast and even some places in the East Coast, but in the West Coast of the United States are absolutely outrageous. They're just absolutely insane. So that it makes it almost impossible for a person to even have the possibility of owning a home. Like I know if I went to the West Coast, I wouldn't be able to buy shit. Like that place is just crazy. So some places in the West Coast, but uh, with regard to with what I'm doing, I wouldn't see how I am actually exploiting someone who wants to do this, who is willingly to uh, you know, who who's okay with actually, they read the lease, they're okay with the terms and everything. And even on the terms of like it being a necessity, shelter being a necessity, I agree. We can both agree on there that, yeah, shelter is a necessity. But what is not a necessity is the type of shelter that I am providing. That is 100% not a necessity. Uh, so I think that's where our disagreement is. But in regards to, since you think that it is a necessity and it just somehow should be, I guess I don't know what your feelings are. Or like what would you feel is the answer for someone to like resolve this issue for like this basic need? Because we both agree that shelter is a basic need. So how in like forget about capitalism. How would this be resolved?
Oh, you mean if we get rid of if capitalism wasn't an obstacle?
Right. Like if let's say Steve, like we're like, all right, Steve, we want you to like solve this. It like they came up to you and were like, dude, what do you want? Like in regards to deal with the issues with housing and shelter, like how would you fix this issue so that
Oh,
it's different? Yeah, what would you do?
I would basically make it so that, because there are more vacant homes than there are homeless people. I would
Mm-hmm.
say, first of all, any homeless person should be able to occupy a vacant home. Have you heard of Moms for Housing?
No.
So, um, these moms in Oakland uh, basically squatted in a vacant house, and they got evicted, and they had a semi standoff to where they weren't going to leave the house, and the sheriffs came in with a tank and like came in at 5 in the morning and evicted them, and it was
That's
all
horrible.
over the news. It was actually 1 block away from where I live, and so yeah, that would basically like the solution would be for the people to seize, properties and manage them communally and basically work together to make repairs and whatnot. And yeah, anybody that owns a home, anybody that owns more than one home would basically like have to give up their extra houses, and you couldn't you couldn't use those houses to profit off. They would be utilized for people's needs.
Even though a home like that is not a need, you would still just take it. You don't find that as some form of extortion to take someone's property away? There was a person who did that not too long ago, a few years ago.
Um,
It wasn't in this country, but I know exactly. Actually, my ancestors had to deal with that stuff.
yeah, I mean, it would depend on. I don't think it's extortion. I think if you're taking something from somebody that they don't need for, like to live, and you're not making a profit off of the taking of that, then I would say that's justified.
If they're not making a profit off of it, it's
Yeah,
okay.
if you're just using it to subsist.
Okay. I'm sorry. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean? I'm sorry. I'm a little confused.
So let's just say you
Hmm.
have two houses. You live in one, and you're renting, or you own one that you want to rent out. And I come and I just take it over. I say, well, actually, this house is mine now because I don't have a place to live, and I need a place to live. And thank you for your house. I would say that that is more justified than you holding on to that house in the hopes of profiting off of somebody else.
Okay. Even though we've already determined that that form of shelter, you don't need it, but you're saying you need it all of a sudden now, right?
I
You're
would
kind
need that shelter more than I would need it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to quantify like how much of it would be needed and how much of it would be an extravagance. Like how many bedrooms is it? How many bedrooms do I need? How many square foot is a necessity, and how much over that is an extravagance? I don't know how to quantify that.
okay. From what it sounds like, it's just what you determine it is, whatever you think it is that you need, is what it sounds like. You just said
Well,
if I had a house, right, and if I had two houses, right, I have one house that I live in. The other house I just have because I'm going to potentially rent it out to another tenant, right, or to a tenant. You come in and say, well, I don't have a house, so I'm just going to take it. So I'm just going to live in there. Based on your example, because you don't have a house, simply because you don't have a house, all of a sudden now you just have the right to take that house, is what you're saying, right?
no, I wouldn't have the right, but in in a comparative situation where on one hand you have a profiting situation, and the other hand you have a homeless situation, I would say, yeah, the homeless situation wins out in that battle.
So because someone's homeless, they automatically rate a home, is what you're saying.
Yeah, they should.
Okay. And just for being alive and not having a home, you automatically rate a home, even though you didn't do anything for the home. You should just automatically have a home.
Yeah, in an ideal world, yeah.
How would you make that happen? Because as far as I know, no one's going to build a home or maintain a home for somebody just because they need it.
Yeah, I don't know how I would make it happen.
Okay, that's what I'm saying because it doesn't. It sounds very. I'm not trying to be mean. It sounds very fantasy like because homes require lots of work, loads and loads of work. I've been doing real estate now. I've been in the real estate, my own real estate business for since 2014, but I bought my first house back in 2008. But that was just the house that I lived in. Now, and they require a tremendous amount of work. They're just not given. They don't just pop up. People don't generally just want to work on them. This is why if you're a handyman, actually, if you work in that business, it's very hard to find someone who's going to work on a house and do it properly, because it's very laborious. I could tell you, it's very tedious, and it requires a lot of struggle and requires a lot of effort to actually build a home, and not only that, maintain that home, because it's not easy work. Floors, painting, roofing, insulation. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, I
Dealing
got a
with
buddy who's a carpenter.
yeah, it's a bitch. It requires loads and loads of work, and that's why they charge so much. So uh, I don't see how that would be feasible. This world seems like you would have a lot of people who really don't really value their time too much. Would you say that time is not worth anything? Like a person's time is not really worth anything, because that's really what it is. You're giving up a good chunk of your time to make sure that this home is operating, or is a functional home, as everybody as an ideal home, as what the general public may perceive as a regular home. So uh, do you think time isn't worth anything,
Oh,
like
it's
someone's time?
definitely
Okay.
it definitely is.
Okay.
But I'm saying in an ideal world, as opposed to this capitalist world, all this time and effort you're talking about would be shared among the community rather than specialized by a few people.
Okay. And what if the
So
okay.
you would have, all these homeless people that aren't currently, being productive. You would theoretically have them learning the, what is known in this world as trade. You would be learning skills and applying those skills to, their real life situations, to where, you might have people that would be homeless in this world. In the ideal world, they'd be learning how to fix, a house that was given to them, or helping other people with their houses, or helping other people build a house for themselves.
That sounds beautiful. And let me ask you this: do you think that's a possibility?
Sure. I
Okay.
mean, we we made it to the moon, so I think we can do something as simple as building some houses for people.
Sure. I mean, it sounds great. I love that idea. But let me ask you this, Steve. Why do you think homeless people are homeless?
Lots of reasons.
Hmm.
There's mental illness. There's um, there's people that are homeless that work jobs.
Hmm.
Um, there's no one reason why people are homeless.
Okay, so these people that work jobs and that are mentally ill, somehow they're gonna learn how to fix homes and do all this stuff, like maintain homes and all that stuff somehow, is what you're saying?
Under the current system,
Hmm.
most likely not, because there's no incentivization for that kind of thing.
There is
It's
no
only
incentive.
Well, there is from nonprofits and NGOs and whatnot, but not from the capitalists. You
I
know,
would, yeah, I would disagree with that 100%. I think there is more incentive now to actually learn how to fix these homes, because you can actually um, you can benefit others by actually, if you learn a trade with a home. For example, if you learn how to drywall, or you learn how to lay floors, or you learn how to do cabinetry work or something like that, people they always need that work all over the place. I mean, I can't tell you how many places. I mean, you'll find jobs like that all over the place here in North Carolina about people needing work. So, and you can actually make money off of that. But again, that's on the capitalist side of it. So I would say that it's very advantageous actually to learn a trade or a skill within uh, that sector of real estate. So I mean, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say we see eye to eye on that one. But
well, no, you're right. I mean,
mhm.
I'm talking more of like how much opportunity is there. How much in like in home development, in construction, how much opportunity is there for a homeless person to just walk up to a construction site and say, "Hey, can you teach me the trade?" Like how much actual opportunity is there for that kind of thing?
I have no idea. As long as there's a will, I know this. I know if there's a will, there's a way. I can tell you that
Yeah,
much. If you want to hear this, I know people who have come to this country don't speak this language, don't have papers, are illegal, are not given a chance to do anything, have no opportunity. You've actually seen this individual yourself, Steve, and they bust their ass and they make it work somehow. So if you're in this country and you're an American, whether you're homeless or not, you can make it work if you want it.
yeah, I agree
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent. I mean, not everybody has that ability. What if you got, you're 60 or 70 and you've got health problems or something? You're not going to be able to pull off the same kind of work as a 30 or 40-year-old.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. If you're older, yeah, you're gonna have some issues. You may not have to. You may not be able to do like all the physical work and all that stuff, but there's always if you're willing to strengthen this, you can make it work. You don't necessarily have to do the labor type of work. The way I see it, the way this structure, the way this country was structured, is if you want something in this country, you can do it. You can do it. It's set up so that you can do it. Now, are you going to get your hands dirty? Sure, sure. You're going to have to get your hands dirty every so often, but it's not going to be necessarily you like you know dumping like buckets of like cement and all sorts of lifting hundreds and hundreds of pounds and all that stuff. Where like someone who's older who's like done time is going to have to do that, but you can do it. I think this country is set up so that you can, and not only that, we have great learning resources that don't cost anything. Everything that I learned in regards to real estate was from hands-on experience and I'm not gonna lie here, YouTube. Oh yeah, and reading books, just reading like $3 books or whatever that were on sale on Amazon or something. So in regards to that, so uh, I don't know if is there anything else that you wanted to add, like because I don't know if we came up to like a solution, if we came up with like a solution on like how this issue would would be fixed, like how because I understand what you're saying. I understand. I don't necessarily agree that what I am doing is exploiting anyone with someone who is actually willingly and wants to pay for something like this because they don't want to deal with the burden of having to deal with a home and all that stuff. They'd rather just rent. So,
Well,
is it?
let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
When you say, well, I want to do something as opposed to I'd rather not do something,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, well, I don't want to own a house because I don't want to, spend all this money on a house, or I don't have the money for this house. You still, we're still, I guess, back to, you either have to rent or yeah, it's to me it's like we're in a prison, and it's like we're in a prison where we
Give me a
have the
second.
choice.
Just a second, man. I got room service in here. Just a second.
Stay on the back for
You,
housekeeping.
yeah, if you could you can leave
Very
it.
well, thank
Sorry.
you.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that, buddy. I'm sorry, man. It was they were dropping off towels. Go ahead, man.
All good.
Mm-hmm.
So to me it's like we're living in a prison wherein you don't like the cell you're in, you can move to a different cell. That's not freedom, you're still in prison. So people don't have to rent from you, but you're still in the class of landlords that you're aligning yourself with, that people are basically, they don't have a choice. They're going to have to rent from somebody. Now, when you say they don't need to rent a house, they just need shelter. But, is that like, is that practicable?
You're saying practical by today's society?
Yeah.
I would say in today's society, it depends on which, yeah, I think that's personal. But then if you're going to say if not living in a home with like, all the amenities that a regular home has, drywall, insulation, heating, air conditioning, water, electricity, all that stuff, then I would say then, well, I need internet. Is it practical to not have internet? So that means should everyone have free internet? I need electricity. So does that mean that electricity should be free? I mean, that's where does this road end? Is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, yeah, the state has basically determined that you need electricity, you need a working stove, and you need a working fridge.
Mm-hmm.
They've basically determined that, yeah, in order to, you know, maintain a lifestyle that is commensurate with, being an American, that these things must be, maintained by the
That's true.
landowner. So, yeah, I would say that by and large, the state has determined this, and that's the society that we live in. And you're either living up to that standard or you're living below that standard in like extreme poverty or homelessness.
Mm-hmm. Well, so in that case, what you're saying is that all these things should be provided, right? Because if you're saying a home is a necessity, right? Like a home is a necessity. Well, a home is not just a shelter; it's everything in that home. So anything that happens in that home is considered a necessity, is what you're saying?
No, I mean, I have a Nordic track that's, not a necessity. So I don't think that should be provided for
Sure.
me. But I think the basic structure and the infrastructure of electricity and water should be provided.
To
And,
keep right, to keep up with like the standards of society, is what you're saying,
yeah,
to like be at this like level of a society to like operate.
yeah. If you're going to be a productive member of society and like contribute to society, that you know, because if in capitalism, you can't have a workforce uh, that can't sustain their lives. If they can't sustain their own lives, they're not going to be able to work for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the compensation is wages. So you're basically paid enough to where you're able to get shelter, get food, so that you can go back the next day and put in 8 hours for the capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that food, healthcare, and housing should be provided by the state,
Through.
or if the state, however the state decides to provide that, if they say that billionaires should be putting money into a fund that funds these things, then sure, let's do that.
So you what you're saying is that like some of these basic needs to keep up with society should be paid by someone else and not the individual.
Or collectively.
What if I don't want to?
Why wouldn't you want to?
Because just same for the same reasons that you don't like capitalism, because I don't want to. So now I don't
Well,
rate I don't rate a house, I don't rate electricity, I don't rate anything.
the reason I don't like capitalism is because believe it's exploitative. So
Mhm.
what would be your reason for not wanting society to collectively own housing?
Because life isn't fair, naturally. What you produce and what I produce and what everyone else produces is very different.
Right,
What you put out could be worth more or less than what I put out in regards to whatever respective field or subject that we're talking about.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
like a child can't produce what you
Mm-hmm.
produce,
Mm-hmm.
and neither can an 80-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all in the same boat. We were all in those stages of life.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to be 80 at some point. Why can't we all just help each other instead of competing against each other?
Right. The issue is that the all of the United States isn't made up of 80-year-olds and children. A good chunk of the population is made up of people who want to do whatever it is that they want to do. Now, uh, if what you're saying is you're saying that instead of you choosing what you want, the state will dictate what's best for you, and they'll tax somehow billionaires, or what you're saying, they're going to take money from billionaires and they'll take care of people somehow.
Yeah, and when you say the state, I'm thinking the state is all of us collectively.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be, ideally collectively decided upon.
Collectively decided upon to take that shelter, like not shelter, but like, well, we've already determined that what is actually essential, but we've created this like social construct, I guess we could say, or this like social norm to be a productive person in society would require like a house, like a regular house, like, with a stove and all that stuff. So what you're saying is that the state would pay this because people would want to, and how would the state get all the funds for all this stuff?
Theoretically, the same way the state gets all the funds for infrastructure like freeways and hospitals, other modes of transportation that the country uses to
Mm-hmm.
function as a nation.
And how well is that working out, Steve?
Well, it's not working out because it's um, we're in capitalism, so it's we operate on a system of private ownership.
Right. Well, the state is not private ownership, but if you give more money to the state and the state doesn't know how to function, how to run their, I don't know what you call it, how to help society accordingly. I mean, wouldn't you say that there's something wrong with the state?
Well, you're assuming that the state wouldn't know what to do in a non-capitalist situation. So right now, the state is controlled by capitalists.
The state
Like,
is controlled by capitalists. What do you mean by that?
well, let's take animal agriculture, for example. You have
Mm-hmm.
uh, the SNAP program and you have subsidies run by same entity, and that entity is basically controlled by lobbyists for the meat industry. So that's one example.
Mm-hmm.
Another example is big tech lobbyists um, influencing lawmakers in the way that they influence lawmakers. So you've got all these tentacles, reaching in from the private sector, controlling the state, which is basically politicians on the take. So yeah, that's very much not working out for us.
Okay, so how would you fix that? Collectively,
Well, I would
people would do what?
get money out of politics
Okay.
for a start. Um, do term limits. Um, yeah, but I think we're getting off track. I think we're coming up with we're trying to make solutions, and the debate prop is, you know, whether or not real estate business is anti-vegan.
Right.
So so I think we both agree that climate change is a problem,
Yeah. Yeah. With
but
with
we don't need to we don't have to come up with a solution to climate change in order to determine that it's a big problem.
Mhm. Sure.
So I would say that we're still left with this problem of exploitation.
Well, it's what you consider exploitation, because I can go ask any of my tenants and ask them if they're being exploited, and I don't think they're gonna. I've never heard of a victim. I would say when someone's being exploited, they would say, yeah, you know, there's a victim and a, you know, like a perpetrator, I guess you would say, and I don't think any of them would say that they're being exploited. And I
Okay.
and and which, by the way, Steve, could you like restart your camera by chance, because you've been like frozen for like 10 minutes. Do you know how to
Oh,
do that? There. Oh yeah, you just cut out your audio.
hold on.
There we go. Okay, there we go. You're good now. You're good.
Am I unfrozen?
You're good. Yeah, you're good now.
Okay.
Cool, man. Go ahead.
All right. Well, let's talk about healthcare. So if we were in England,
Hmm.
we could go to the hospital if we needed to and not get charged thousands of dollars for seeing a doctor for, I don't know, getting cancer treatment or something like that. So would you say that we are exploited for the same level of health care that we receive here that we wouldn't be in England?
Are we exploited here in the United States for the amount of healthcare that we get? Honestly, I can't speak educated on that, like as educated as I possibly can on that, because I don't know I know there are healthcare plans, right? And I don't know what those healthcare plans are. I do know there are people who have cancer. Like I said, this is all anecdotal evidence. Like I don't have any type of empirical data to support any of this and how much money is being spent on all this stuff. But I know if you have insurance, right, which you're supposed to have insurance, uh, you shouldn't be getting charged thousands and thousands of dollars, as far as I know. I know when I pay my insurance, it's like super cheap, and I think even if it's anything expensive, the most I would have to pay is like $1,000, and it's like one time or something like that. But it's nothing outrageous. Uh, but would I say it's more exploitive? The way I see it is you're going to have to end up paying for it anyways through your taxes or through uh, private insurance. But I wouldn't say it's exploitive. Either way, you're gonna if you have to if you're saying that you go to you go to England and you can just go there and everything's taken care of. Well, it's only taken care of because everything's already being paid for, and it's being paid for on the back end. Okay, so but if you come here, it's not being paid on the back end; it's being paid on the front end. It's just coming out of your paycheck. That's the only difference. It's coming out of you see it, and you get to choose what type of insurance you want and all that stuff. So I wouldn't say if you say one's exploitive, you would have to say the other one's exploitive, because someone's going to have to pay for it, because doctors don't work for free. I don't think any doctor would work for free, or any nurse or healthcare provider is going to work for free. Someone's going to have to pay for that one way or another. There's someone's going to have to pay. Doesn't matter. No doctor is going to want to do surgery for 12 hours, even if that's what their passion is. If they want to love, I'm not going to say no doctor. Maybe some, maybe there are some doctors out there, but for the amount of people that need healthcare, and I think probably you and I see eye to eye on this. You know, we don't have a healthcare system; we have a sick care system where we take care of sick people. Um, I don't think any doctor is going to want to handle all these people who are sick all the time for free, or as to be a part of a system and go to school and deal with all that stuff for free.
True, but yeah, and I don't know the entire payment structure in England, but I'm pretty sure that their taxes are not that much higher than if they are higher. I don't think they're exorbitantly higher than they are here.
I think you're right on that. I haven't looked on it, but I think you're absolutely. I think you are right on that. That it's the healthcare system in this country is like all kinds of jacked up. But again, I can't definitively say because I don't know. Like I know Americans are very unhealthy, and I don't know if the reason why it's so much more expensive here compared to there, and that's why it's more expensive here and all that stuff. So I can't really say, but and that's why their taxes are just a little bit higher than ours and not so much. The difference, if we just made it universal, why couldn't we make it universal? But as far as it being exploitative, we're just looking at, is it exploitative because someone is profiting off of it? I think you would have to accept both systems as being exploitative because someone is paying for it and someone is making money based on your framework.
Yeah, but the exploitation over here is like Kyle Kalinske says, it's a scam within a scam within a scam. Because you've got insurance middlemen and HMOs, and everybody's trying to get their cut. And whereas in a single payer system, it's like, okay, the government is saying, here's the money for this, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah, and I would agree that there's like a bunch of like corrupt shit in this country in regards to that. 100%. Is their system better than ours? I don't know, man. But I would agree. But all I'm saying is that either way, someone is paying for this. Based on the framework that you've built, someone is being exploited. But I'll also bring this up to you in regards, even though this doesn't really have to do with real estate. So if someone is negligent towards their health, and as we know, I put it in my videos a bunch of times, but I didn't think this topic was going to come. The majority of people in the United States are either fat or overweight or obese here in America, right? And we know why, the reasons why they are. Their diet is shit. They don't exercise enough. They don't sleep enough. They don't get enough good rest, all that stuff. But it's mainly because they eat a bunch of shit food, right? So if someone is blatantly hurting themselves, right, why should someone else have to pay for that?
Yeah, I agree. Okay. And when I'm talking about like healthcare, I'm mostly talking about like unforeseen accidents, like traffic accidents.
I agree with you.
Falling off the roof and stuff like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm in total agreement. Like the majority of healthcare could be completely alleviated by actual preventative care.
I agree.
Proper diet.
Right. Proper diet, proper lifestyle, I would say as well, too. I would just add a little bit. Because I think diet's a big portion, but, you got to take care of yourself as well, too, outside of just eating healthy. But diet is, I would say, the big main focus there. Okay. So, yeah, I think we just see eye to eye on that one, that sick care is not necessarily a good thing. But anyway, so we drifted off, man. How can we? I'm still trying to understand how what I'm doing is anti-vegan. Like how could we sum everything that we've just talked about? How can we sum up to say that what I'm doing in North Carolina is anti-vegan to the people who are looking for properties or are willing to pay for this, or getting, I would say, a very reasonable deal, if not a better deal than most people with the properties that I give. I'm not out to rip off anyone. That's not what I got into the real estate business for. But how is that what I'm doing anti-vegan?
Well,
Because
yeah, my argument isn't that, you know, it isn't about the level of ripping off or the level of like how fair the landlord is. My argument is that landlords are inherently operating unethically by using a system that basically is parasitical. So I guess we got to go to Coconut Island. Have you ever been there?
no, what's Coconut Island?
All right. So you're on a plane and you're going to Europe,
Hmm.
and or let's say you're going to Japan, and the plane crashes in the
Hmm.
middle of the Pacific, and you wake up, you're washed up on this tiny desert island, and there, there, unbeknownst to you, there was somebody else that survived the crash, and they woke up before you, and they found all the coconuts on the island. They
Hmm.
gather them up, and you come to, and you wander over, and you say, "Hey, how's it going?" And the guy's like, "Cool." And you go, "Yeah, I couldn't help but notice the pile of coconuts you got there, and I don't see any other food, laying around here, and I think I can get a coconut." And the guy goes, "Yeah, man. Um, you just have to suck my dick." So now you don't have to suck his dick.
Right.
He's not forcing you to do it, but you you're gonna have to get a coconut at some point.
Hmm.
So if that's not coercion, then you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that's like it's super extreme though. Like, I mean, we're talking about having to pay rent and like sucking someone's dick in an island. You know what I'm saying? Are you trying to say like you have to do something that you don't want to do?
Right.
Okay. Well, life is just like that, man. If it was up to me, if I had my choice, if we all had our choices, I think I would be on a beach right now. Well, I'm in the mountains right now, but which is a nice place. But if it was up to me, I wouldn't. The world would be vegan. I wouldn't be making YouTube videos. I wouldn't have, or I'd be making other YouTube videos. But I wouldn't. I actually wouldn't be in the real estate business. I wouldn't work at all. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't have created my own retirement. I would be on the beach right now, like airing my nuts out. But unfortunately, that's not how life is. Okay, life. Here, you're saying that someone's got a resource, right? You're saying this guy's got coconuts, right? And he's forcing you to do something that you don't want to do. But in this case, it's like something like super, super extreme, like sexually exploit you, right? We're talking about sexual exploitation here. Um, what if the guy said, "Yeah, sure, you can have some coconuts, but you're going to help me build, you're going to help me build a house or some shit. You're going to help me build a shelter, and I'll give you some coconuts." I think that would be more logical rather than saying suck my dick. Because let's say I'm the coconut holder, right? I'm not sexually exploiting none of my tenants. I'm just saying, yeah, it costs this amount, and you're going to receive all these benefits from getting that amount. But that was a very funny analogy. Would you agree that that's a little extreme though, or would you say it's
Well, yeah,
still?
it's basically boiling capitalism down to two people
Mm-hmm.
on a desert island.
Right? But that's a sick
So,
fuck over there.
yeah, but I mean, capitalism is basically sick fucks. I mean,
Okay.
it's capitalists basically are, you've got to get over. There's no getting around concept of you have to get over on people in order to make profits. If you don't, you're either going to flatline or you're going to get swallowed up by another capitalist.
Well, that's unfortunately, see, that's your perceived view of it. I don't think it's getting over on someone. It's trading services, is the way I see it. Because what I do, for example, what I did to get my properties, for example, is I saved up a bunch of my money working in IT as a Marine, and then when I got out of the Marine Corps in IT for those services, and I indirectly paid for those properties with my services. That's what
Right.
I did. We're trading services. So it's an exchange because before there used to be barter systems where you would trade actual physical items. Now we just have a monetary system. But I wouldn't say you're getting over on someone. You're just trading your time is what it is. You're trading
Well,
services for something that you want.
yeah, but it's still a continuum. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in order to make a profit, you have to charge more than something is actually worth. So that could either be a shitload more, or it could be a little bit more. But
Well, mm-hmm.
in either case, it's still exploitation in order to make that difference. The money has to flow upwards.
Well, you're saying you charge more for what it's worth. Uh, Again, that's your opinion of it. For example, I have what I charge is really it's not what I feel it's more that it's worth. It's what society, if you want to call it, what the marketplace deems it's worth. Okay, uh, let's just say a vegan pizza, right? We all need to eat. We don't need to eat vegan pizza, but a vegan pizza costs like what $6 or so, $7, whatever. If you're buying one at Walmart or some shit like that here in North Carolina, uh, and it probably costs them a few cents to make, right? Probably it didn't cost them much at all to make. Actually, I had a friend who worked in a pizza place, and they said that the actual materials itself, like the food items itself, cost together to make that pizza would cost about like 10 to 15 cents is what it cost, and they would sell the pizza for like, I mean, way more. I mean, this was back in like mid 2000s, so and like they were working at Cece's Pizza, that nasty place, but they would charge like each pizza would cost, it would come around, they would end up charging each person over like $6 per head, right? Because that's what it's worth based on the time that was put into it. Because I think what you're doing is devaluing the time that it is to get that to the individual, to sell that to the individual, not the actual items itself. I don't, it seems like your value of worth, our definitions of what something is worth is different.
No, I think we agree on what something is worth under capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think you're considering the the necessary labor that contributes to that worth. And so the labor, and this is not my opinion, this is Adam Smith's opinion. Adam Smith, the fucking godfather of capitalism himself, said that in order to make a profit, you have to pay your workers less in wages than the value they create for the product that you're selling. So while the, and this is where Marx comes in with his labor theory of value, Marx didn't say he agrees with Smith. He says that that necessarily has to happen. That doesn't mean that a product is determined just by labor, but that labor is a necessary factor in the creation of that value, that good's value.
Okay. So you're saying because the payment of the wages need to be worth less than what the product is going to sell for, or the service.
Close. It's the 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 wages paid has to be less than the value of the labor put into that product.
Okay.
So it's not a one for one thing, but it's definitely like the labor value is a necessary part of that equation, and the wages paid has to be below that value in order to make
Okay. And who dictates the value?
a profit. Different forces, market forces. Um,
Would you say the people do that?
yeah, on a basic supply and demand
Okay.
thing. Yeah,
So, for example, like somebody like working a shit job like it like McDonald's or something like that or like whatever, fast food joint, would you say they're being exploited?
yeah,
Okay.
highly.
They're being highly exploited.
Yeah,
And you would say they're being highly exploited because you have people making much more money off of their work, right?
yeah.
So to to be as pragmatic as possible or as practical as possible, what would you say would be what would you say their value is?
What do you mean?
Like what's their value for the amount of work that they're doing, right? Like the minimum wage for the United States right now is, I think it's like, I just looked it up actually, it's like 7.25 or something like that, which I agree is super low, but I think that needs to go up. But if what would you say is an actual like feasible wage to pay these people?
I think the figure that if equalized for what was it? I think if wages remain constant with what they were in relation to productivity since the 70s, that the minimum wage would be like 23, 24 bucks an hour right now. So I would say probably around there.
Okay. So
And then it
uh,
would go up, in terms of, however more highly skilled, jobs, on a scale. But yeah, in terms of just your basic unskilled labor position, it would be probably around 23, 24 bucks an hour.
so and if someone's not getting paid that much, you would say that they're being exploited, or if they are getting that, if it's not even if they're getting paid that much, if someone is making a profit off of that, they would be someone, these people would be getting exploited.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where I think this like there's like this huge disconnect. It seems like anytime anyone makes a profit, people are being exploited. If they find, even if people are taken care of, you feel like they're being exploited somehow, even though if they agree to it, they're still being exploited for doing some type of basic work or whatever. And I think that's where the disconnect is, or not the disconnect, where I think the disagreement is between you and I. Uh, I don't think that if you make a profit that you are uh, you're being exploited. Like I have a cell phone, right? Like I'm writing with this pen that I've had for like I don't know 8 years or something like that. I for sure I know the people made a profit off of this. I don't think I was exploited to buy that to pay for this just because somebody made a profit. I feel that if someone took the time to create this and create a business and get all these people together to work together to pump out these products, I wouldn't say that's necessarily an exploitive thing. And I think that same thing bleeds over, or that same thing correlates to real estate. Even if shelter is a human basic human need, even though we've determined that it's not a basic human need, but it's only considered a need to be within line with the societal norms of today. So I think that's where our disconnect is. That's all. And I don't think we're going to come to terms on either or.
Well, let
Is
me ask. Let me
Yeah, go
ask
ahead.
you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if if you don't feel that animal exploitation is justified under capitalism, what do you what do you think makes it justifiable for human exploitation under capitalism?
I don't think it is exploitation. That's what I'm saying. You're saying it is exploitation. That's where we have our
Okay,
differences.
so let me ask you this. Would you
Mhm.
say that human slavery is exploiting 100% of someone else's labor?
100% of their labor. Like, what do you mean? Like their time?
Yeah, I mean, if if I enslave you, if I say, okay, here's a gun to your head,
Hmm.
I'm going to have you do this work for me, and you know that's all there is to it.
Or I
Would
die.
you say that? Would you say that I was exploiting you 100% for your labor?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question to you is, at what percentage does slavery end and capitalism begin?
I have. I don't know. I don't know how you could put a percentage at that. Like, what? If right, because
I agree.
nobody. Right. Yeah. No one's putting a gun to anyone's head. I'm not. And in regards to real estate, I'm definitely not putting. And we've already discussed this already. I'm not putting a gun to anyone's head.
Right.
So.
So there's a so putting a gun to somebody's head is explicit coercion,
Hmm.
right? But what what is happening in the real estate business, what is happening in on Coconut Island is implicit coercion, where you don't have to do something, but realistically, you kind of have to do it.
You don't have to rent. Like I said, we
Right.
determined that. Yeah.
You could definitely,
Yeah.
build a cardboard shack and call
Hmm.
that shelter. You could definitely do that.
Hmm.
But is that realistic?
It doesn't have to be a cardboard shack. Like I said, you could build your own house. You can buy your own house. Like I said, there's
Right.
plenty of
I could
opportunity.
go out, I could
Hmm.
say, landlord, I'm out. Here's my 2 months notice, and I could go and I could build a nice 5x5 wood structure
Hmm.
on the corner. Is that realistic?
It depends on the individual. Look, I know people who lived in cars, man. I don't think you. I know people who come from Cuba. I have my family members that come from Cuba and all that shit, and they're able to survive. What I'm saying is the problem with this Coconut Island thing is that it's not a precise analogy because there's opportunity in this country for you to do other things. There's not just one option. Either you suck the guy's dick or you don't get any coconuts. You're not sucking anyone's dick. You can do all sorts of things. You have the opportunity to do whatever it is that you want in this country.
Well, yeah, but now we're back to the prison that I have the opportunity to hop from cell to cell. It's like we have the opportunity to start a small farm and kill animals and make profit off of that, but you and I would agree that that's unethical,
Yeah, because you're taking the life of an animal needlessly.
right? Right.
Hmm.
So I'm saying you're taking the hard-earned cash off your tenants
Hmm.
needlessly. If you can make a living doing something else that provides more for society rather than just taking a certain amount of money and paying your mortgage and then taking the rest of that money for yourself, then why wouldn't you do that?
Because it's not necessarily exploitative based on the that same on my framework because these people are choosing to do this. As I said, uh, it's very different when you're comparing animals who are not who have no rights, no are literally enslaved compared to an individual who can has the opportunity to do whatever it is that they want.
Are you excluding renters that like need like a basic like? Are you saying that you're not going to rent to people that like? Well, you guys don't need a house. What you need is like basic shelter. I'm only renting to people that like can afford, a certain lifestyle.
People who can afford it, yeah. I can't put someone in the house who can't afford it. No, I'm not running a homeless shelter.
Okay.
Which, by the way, you can do that as well too. There's, you know, we do have social. I mean, I'm not saying they're good or they're the best or anything, but you can't. That's another choice you can do as well too. My time, the way I see it is my time. It takes a lot of my time, not just time, active time, but the time that I had prior to all that, before I bought that one house that you saw, and not to include my other houses, took a really long time for me to get all those houses and acquire them and invest time and evaluate risk and all that stuff. And that's what you're paying
Yeah,
for.
I'm true, and I'm saying that like, do we really want to live in a society where you've got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and work really hard and invest and risk in order to make money off people's needs, basic.
I would say it's better this way than having to depend on society as a whole because uh, I don't think society as a whole we've already discussed this like we what you produce and what I produce is going to be very different. Production as a whole is going to be very different compared to individuals. So if you
Right.
work really hard, at least I know that if I work really hard and I work smart, if I'm willing to accept failure and mess up and learn from those failures, I know that I could pick myself up and do something. Whereas on this other side, I don't really have much of a choice to do anything.
How so?
Well, if you're in regards to, I guess what you're saying is if you weren't really too clear on like how it would work if you had a like everyone work together somehow. But what if like people don't want to work together? What if people don't want to build houses? What if people don't want to run electricity and run plumbing and deal with clogged toilets and insulation and all sorts of nasty roofing and all that stuff? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, most people don't want to do that. So what are you gonna do then?
Well,
You get no house for you? Like,
no, I mean, you'd have a certain number of people that want to do that, and then let's say you'd have a collective situation where it's like, well, I don't want to be a ditch digger, but I know that in order to be a productive member in this society, I'm going to have to put a little bit of time into ditch dig, you know, and maybe, by doing that, then I'll be able to have more free time to do the shit that I want to do. Or maybe there'll be an opportunity to do different kinds of work that I do want to do. But, if we're all contributing to the same goal, then eventually these things will come around and you know
I mean,
they'll work
that's
themselves out.
yeah. I mean, it sounds nice. It sounds nice, but the reality is that um, I don't think that's how people operate. There are people like, for example, there are certain things that I don't want to do, so I don't do them, right? So, and I know the person who I hired, for example, I had to have a septic tank drained, and the guy who had to drain the septic tank, I'm sure didn't want to drain the septic tank. So therefore, I will gladly pay you to drain the septic tank, no problem, to get all that nasty stuff out of there. And you're saying, well, if I do this long enough, then hopefully I'll get to a position where I can. Well, how's that any different from the system that we have right now?
The system we have right now is you have a small class of people that don't have to work at all and then you have a little bit larger class of people that have a certain amount of money, however they got it, either by generational, wealth, or maybe they were lucky enough to bootstrap themselves, and they get to do the thing that they want to do. And then you've got a whole shitload of people that have no choice but to do whatever they can get work-wise. And I don't think it needs to be that way.
Okay, well, again, that's I think where we disagree. I don't think you don't have any choice. I think you 100% have a choice in this country. I think you do have a choice. I think that's the essence of this country. I think that's why my grandparents came to this country, to escape communism, because I'm Cuban. I'm Cuban American, right? And they came to this country to escape all that, because here you do have a choice. Yeah, you're gonna have to work hard. Sure, you're gonna have to bust your ass, but you have the choice whether you want to do it or not. And there's repercussions to the choices that you're going to make in your life. I mean, that's what it is. There's value in work. There's value in being smart and taking risks. And real estate goes into real estate is just a piece of that.
Well, I definitely agree that there's value in work, but I think there's more value in working towards a common goal rather than working towards making somebody else even wealthier than they
Okay, well, that's just where I guess that's just where we disagree, man. That's I don't I don't see how, like, I don't think we really can really debate this any further. I think that's just where we disagree as individuals. Unless you got
are.
something else to say, like, I mean, I don't see how you're able to prove that this is anti-vegan. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to say?
No, I think I'm botching my side of the argument pretty badly. I've got I've got videos on playlist on my channel. If anybody wants to check it out, it's under the housing uh, playlist that would do a lot better job than I have here, improving the exploitative nature of real estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just to conclude, I mean, just know that I don't disrespect you. Like, I don't, I don't have any lack of respect for you or anything like that. I appreciate you coming on and doing the stream and all that stuff. I think you're very cordial. I think you're very polite and everything. So I do appreciate it, Steve. I do take offense when people say certain things to me that aren't true. And you did say some things that were pretty nasty to me. Just giving you a heads up, and I did not appreciate, because I know you do watch my videos. I've seen you comment on my videos. Now, I don't lose any sleep over it, because I understand this is what comes with the territory. But just giving you a heads up, you did say some things, but I do appreciate you coming onto the stream and having this debate with me. I don't think we really talked much. I think we're two people with two different points of views, and I don't think you were able to prove that the real estate market is anti-vegan, or what I do is anti-vegan. I don't think uh, I don't think anything was able to really be proven.
Okay. And yeah, I do apologize for some of the things I said in the comments in that one video that sparked this debate. But I said them because I felt that you were kind of flippantly dismissing my argumentation. So that's the reason I said, not that that's an excuse for being a keyboard warrior in that respect, but yeah, I do apologize for any hurt feelings I may have caused. But yeah, I appreciate the debate. Once again, I agree. I didn't really do a great job in proving the anti-veganness uh, because of, I guess, because I don't have an answer for the uh, the how much of a necessity, you know, living in a house is compared to living in a structure of some kind.
Hmm.
But I definitely stand by my uh, contention that that capitalism is anti-vegan, and any business that operates from that structure is anti-vegan. And there are better arguments than what I've made, and hopefully I'll be able to research it more, and maybe we can have another discussion on it.
Sure.
But
Yeah, we could definitely do it. And you've got my email. You could send me an email if you want, and we can continue this discussion further. I think I thought it was a good discussion. I think it was a healthy discussion. It was a very respectful one between you and I. appreciated it. And, you know, I appreciate the apology and all that stuff. You didn't necessarily have to. I understand we all get a little rattled up and stuff, but like we all say things in the comment sections of every, these YouTube channels and stuff, but it's all good. But anyways, I appreciate you coming on. Uh, anything else, man? Because I'm about to end the stream. I couldn't even see any chat here, but I couldn't, for some reason, I couldn't see any chat. I don't know if people are talking here or not, but anyways, is that it, Steve?
pretty much, yeah. I did want to ask you
Mm-hmm.
what you're gonna are you trying to debate vegan gains or?
Yeah, about vegan gains. I've tried a bunch of times, as you know. Like I've had I've seen people who I've never heard of. Like they ask him, they give him money, they've donated money to him, and he's saying he's not dodging. I'm pretty sure I've sent him emails, and he doesn't respond. Now, I'm not the pestering type of person. I'm not gonna be on his back. I'm not gonna get up his ass and shit about that. Like I've sent him messages on Twitter and I've sent him emails. Now it's been a while since I did that, and he's seen my videos and he knows who I am, and he's had Patreons who have told him about me, and he knows who I am, but he doesn't seem to want to do it apparently. But someone did tell me recently that he would debate me, but he wouldn't debate me on activism for some awkward reason. That's
uh,
all I know. And that's based on the words of someone else. That's all I know.
so what are your main contentions with him besides the Brian Turner thing
Mm-hmm.
is basically like you're like it's hypocritical of him to get on Brian Turner when he's himself friends with a hunter.
Right. Well, he's friends with hunters and he's friends with people who eat animals as well too. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that because I have family members who are probably watching the stream or came in and out of the stream who eat animals and all that stuff. Now I don't know. Obviously, I think logically we can all disagree with that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having friends with that as it stands right now for the movement of veganism. The problem that I have is that he's not holding the same, like you said, hypocrisy, right? He's not holding himself to the same standard, and he's said that on video before with the whole Penguin Zero drama. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
He said that he's the common consumer is very aware that when they buy animal products from like fast food places, that they're aware that they're paying for exploitation and these animals to be like tortured and like all the atrocities of factory farming. And so and then he's judging the character of Brian Turner for being friends with John Venus, but then he doesn't hold himself to the same standard with his friends and whatnot.
The only thing I can think of in terms of that is that his friends aren't in the public spotlight, and Brian Turner is potentially influencing thousands of people, and that's where the difference lies.
Yeah.
That you
Okay.
can't that maybe you shouldn't be on your platform, like platforming people that do anti-vegan shit.
Okay.
But
Oh, like John Venus?
yeah,
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure Vegan Gains has had meat eaters on his platform as well too. Well, if he does want to pull that, even though they've been on debates, he's had debates with like dummies and those carny boys, the carnivore people and all that stuff. But that's actually, I would say that goes along the same lines, even though it's just to show that these guys are just absolutely insane and they're illogical. But you're still promoting what they're doing by doing that when you have such a bigger channel. If he did want to go up that route, I.
I don't consider debating meat eaters as platforming,
Mhm.
but I would consider platforming like what if Brian Turner is like saying, hey, don't be mean to John Venus. That's platforming to me. That's like that you're apologizing for an anti-vegan at that point.
Did he say that though?
I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't think he did. I think what Brian Turner said was like, if I'm not mistaken, he actually just commented on one of my videos. He saw one of my videos recently. He commented. I was like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" It was crazy. But he did say that when someone goes back to eating animals, that he's like confused by it. That he doesn't understand why someone would do that. He clearly doesn't support it, but he's like confused by it. He doesn't understand it, but he's not as like judgmental and all that stuff like Vegan Gains is. Uh, I, that's but yeah, in regards to actually debating Vegan Gains, I don't understand why he won't do it. I want to debate him with the in regards to Penguin Zero, and then again with the Brian Turner thing, and I was like super aggressive towards him. Uh, it still didn't do much. If anything, it pushed him even further away. So
Yeah, you never know with him because sometimes he falls for that. But I mean, yeah, I think he's definitely a hypocrite for a number of things, and definitely for not uh, giving you any respect.
it's
He's definitely dissed you in videos that I didn't feel was deserved.
mhm. It's all good though, man. This is all like like I said, I don't know if he's got some type of angle or what he's trying to do. But it's either way, man. If he wants to do it, I'm here. If he doesn't want to do it, that's cool too. He can do whatever he wants. So, but I'm here. It's still open, and I think he knows that. I just think he just doesn't really care, and I think I don't know. I can't definitively say why he won't do it. I just know that he's dodging me 100%. That's all I know, man. That's as much as I can tell you, man.
Where do you stand on the veganness of fast food chains selling plant-based items?
Uh, I would say it's a positive move in the right direction, and the reason why I would say it is because at least I mean, obviously it's still horrible for a person's health, but I mean, if we're talking about vegan and we're talking about the exploitation of humans as well too, you're advertising this stuff and all that stuff, but I think everyone knows that it's not healthy anyways. Uh, I would say it's more positive than it is negative. I would say because it's uh, it's forcing a demand for more plant products rather than animal products. That's what I would say right off the back. I haven't thought way too much into it, but that's what I was thinking. Wow, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts is along those lines. Yeah, it like for the general public, like, oh, you mean this burger that looks like a burger and tastes like a burger is like made out of plants? That's pretty cool. But for a vegan to think that they can go into a Burger King and order an Impossible Whopper and eat it there
Mm-hmm.
and still think they're vegan, I think that's 100% bullshit.
Why is that?
Well, because let's just take all the like exploitation of the employment and the production line and all that, like the human exploitation out of it, and let's like set aside the fact that these workers are handling body parts, and then they go ahead and touch, you know, your plant-based burger, and let's forget about they're sending the plant-based burger on the same grill as all the corpse burgers. The money that they're making off that, it's not like they're separating the Impossible Whopper sales from the regular Whopper sales. You're raising the bottom line of murder and torture industry. So when you go and you buy an Impossible Whopper, you're helping them murder more cows because they're not switching over to plant-based. You know, they're using plant-based as a niche, like another way to make profits.
Okay, but what if they sold? I don't know what the numbers are, and I don't know if you know the numbers, but if they sold more plant-based burgers, right? So let's just to keep things simple, right? They sold let's say we're in 2021, so let's just say in 2020 they sold 100 flesh burgers, cow burgers, right? And 2019 they sold 200, right? But in 2020 they sold only 100 because the other 100 was sold by plant-based, the plant-based products, the plant-based burgers. Don't you think that company would fill the need of what the people want rather than continuously murder animals, right? Because what the people want is the plant-based burger, not, there's more people now that want the plant-based burger than the flesh burger. So it would lower the demand for it. Just to give you an example, by the way,
Yeah.
I know someone. Um, Actually, my girlfriend's, I don't know him personally, but like one of her uncles or something like that. He, this is horrible. He eats Burger King all the time, right? But he doesn't eat he used to eat the Whopper, the regular Whopper. Now he doesn't eat the Whopper. Now he eats the plant-based Whopper, not for health or nothing. It's simply because he likes it better, right? He likes it better. So now this person who would buy, let's just say on average, he would go there 3-4 times a week or whatever. Buying 3 or 4 Whoppers a week. Now he's buying 3 or 4 Impossible Burgers a week. We're talking, that's a substantial amount for one person, if you think about it, that's going to make a change. Now, if we do this on a more grand scale, the demand, it'll kind of shift the demand. Are people going to exclude animal products all the way through? Is it going to topple down the animal product industry? Of course not. No, it's not yet. No, I think there needs to be other forms of activism and other forms of things that are going to totally bring that down. But if the demand goes up for one product, the company is going to put more money into that product because that's what's selling.
Yeah, I would say that what the scenario you're describing is more of an animal rights activism thing and not a veganism. Because if veganism is, seeking to not fund exploitation, then you're absolutely, as an ethical vegan, you're absolutely contributing to the exploitation of animals by going into Burger
King. Okay, because by just simply buying from them.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you would have to buy only from companies that sell vegan products.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I mean, yeah, theoretically, but
I hope you don't do any shopping at Walmart.
No, but it's whatever's possible and practical. So yeah, I do shop at a grocery store that sells animal products, but it's on the continuum, right? So you're talking about doing that kind of shopping versus shopping at Burger King, wherein their existence is based on murder and torture, whereas a grocery store is what, like 50-50 maybe.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I mean, they shove animal products in everything. Maybe 50-50, I guess. Yeah, but they do sell a lot of plant products too. But I
Yeah,
see I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But what if it the way I see it is you may have an argument in regards to like vegans doing that, right? Because vegans are just going to buy plants anyways, right? But if it's a meat eater who's transitioning over and they do that, I think we could both agree that that's a positive. They're going to do it
yeah,
anyways because I can't force them, right? I think that would you say that's at least a positive?
yeah. It's, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you're still like financially contributing to Burger King's bottom line, but in
Right.
terms of like your own, like, hey, I can eat plants and still eat unhealthy bullshit. And then hopefully they'll say, hey, I can buy an impossible chunk of meat at the grocery store,
Or the
and
internet.
hopefully they'll transition to that, and then later transition to just eating plants.
Right. I agree. So yeah, I would agree with that. So yeah, you may have a point there. If it is contributing, if like I agree. I would say I would probably agree on that one. I never thought of it that way. Like if a vegan does buy it, all I know that if there is more demand for those products, they're going to create more of those products. Now is the question is if you're if you're because you're paying money into this giant machine, right? Burger King, right? Is that now going to fuel more the purchasing of more dead, more the killing of more cows and stuff like that, or exploiting more cows and stuff and chickens and whatnot? So is it going to do that because you bought this plant-based product? I don't know, man. I wish I would. I would love to see the numbers on that, on how that would work. Because if the numbers stayed the same, right, but plant-based products went up and they're killing the same amount of cows, right, every single year, or they killed more cows, right, and the plant-based products went up and there's still the deaths of cows keep going up, the exploitation keeps going up, then I would say, yeah, you have a point. But that's, I think, something that we would need to do like some further research on that, or some type of empirical data on that. I think would justify that. But if that is the case, then I would say you're correct. I would say you're absolutely correct. But if it's not, if they're buying more plant-based products and there's less death because they're buying more plant-based products, then I would say then that's a good thing. Because then
Yeah,
hopefully eventually what will happen is they'll just stop and just say, fuck it, we're not going to do that shit. We'll just keep making these things because that's what these plant-based products, because that's what they'll buy. But
yeah. The
um,
only thing is, because of subsidies, I don't see that happening,
right.
because they're incentivized to kill more
Mm-hmm.
and more animals every year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, that might be the
but
case too. That might be the case too. I mean, that's a whole other debate. But anyways, man, Steve, we've almost been at this for like 2 hours, man. Those those 2 hours
right
flew
on.
by. But I appreciate the conversation. I actually have to go already. Um,
Yeah, I appreciate the debate, man. It was a great conversation.
I appreciate it too, Steve. You're a gentleman, man. You're a nice guy, and hopefully send me an email if anything, and we can continue this offline. And if we want to have another discussion, we'll do it again. All right, man.
Right on.
All right, man. I appreciate it, man. Take care.
Cool. You too. Peace.
All right, peace, man.